Welcome to Bad Elizabeth. I'm your host, Gideon Evans.
And I'm your host, Kathy Egan Taylor. The premise of the show is exactly what it sounds like. Each episode, we profile a different Elizabeth, or derivation of that name.
Like Lisa.
Or Liza with a Z.
Or Elizabetta.
Who deserves to be called bad.
Yes, and some of these Elizabeths are lowercase bad. Some of them are uppercase bad from America or Canada.
Canadians are capable of bad things.
Oh, that's our producer and engineer, Will Becton of Jet Road Studios.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
Our episode today is about Bethe Wettlaufer.
That's Beth with an E.
Welcome to our podcast, Bad Elizabeth. I'm Gideon Evans.
And I am Kathy Egan Taylor.
And we know people have the freedom to listen to any show about notorious Elizabeths. We're happy that you're choosing our show. There's so many other shows out there about bad Elizabeths.
Exactly. And I'm going to qualify the sound of my voice because I just got back from the lung doctor. I've been battling with allergies for the past 5 weeks. I think I should be fine. I won't be coughing. But should I be coughing throughout this?
We'll understand why.
We'll understand.
It's like if there's a car backfiring. We want to at least mention what that loud bang is.
Exactly. We're not shooting on a construction site or anything like that.
And what are you allergic to exactly?
Apparently, which made my allergist laugh, you're allergic to everything across the board.
Oh, my God.
And I said, what do you mean everything? And she cackled and said, I mean everything.
That's allergist humor, I guess.
Yeah, which is not when you're suffering from them. There's no humor.
Right.
Well, the odd thing was they told me, like, I'm highly allergic to olive trees.
Oh.
And I live next to a park. They planted 40 new olive trees 2 years ago, and apparently they bloom in 2 years.
Oh, wow.
So I think it might have something to do with that.
That sucks. I remember that Portlandia episode. Remember that show?
Of course.
And they had a parade in one episode, and the parade floats were honoring foods that were common allergens. So they had like a shrimp float and like a peanuts float.
Shellfish.
Yes, exactly.
Poor shellfish.
Sorry to make light, but...
I like the fact that the allergist still laughs at her own material because that's got to be like basically the only joke
That's right.
available to her.
It's like my grandfather, he would always greet me and touch me in the back and go, guess who's back? Yours. I was like, that wasn't funny when I was 3.
Oh, my God. And, of course, the voice you just heard was Will Becton, the wonderful producer-engineer with his wife, Amber, who runs Jet Road Studios.
I'm excited about this episode.
Yeah, so let's get in it. Introduce our Elizabeth du jour. It is Elizabeth Wettlaufer. She spells Elizabeth the regular way with a Z, unlike Elizabeth Finch, who spelled it with an S. And Wettlaufer, I did look it up. It's one of those names that probably was derived from a profession, like messengers. It's kind of like sort of what it means.
My last name is also a profession.
Is that right, Egan?
No, Taylor.
Oh, right. Scott's name. Sorry, I keep forgetting.
That's fine. I don't think Egan means anything.
Egan out of living.
That's right. And also, this Elizabeth is referred to as a Beth, and she has a unique thing in that she's Beth with an E at the end.
And why? Why would you add an E?
I don't know.
Does that change the pronunciation of the TH? It kind of softens it a little bit. Bev. So Elizabeth Wettlaufer was born in 1967. She's Canadian, which is kind of a new thing for our podcast. She grew up in Woodstock, Canada, or near Woodstock, Canada. And I knew there was a Woodstock in Vermont and one in New York, obviously. But I didn't know there was a Woodstock, Canada.
Yeah, it's in Ontario, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Woodstock sounds good until you hear Ontario, and then you're like, oh, maybe she's got an axe to grind.
This made me actually look at a map of Canada for the first time. I only know like sort of Vancouver, Toronto, Montreal.
Right.
But there's a whole vast middle.
Well, my wife was born in Winnipeg.
Exactly.
Which is the capital of
Manitoba. Manitoba.
Yes, Manitoba.
So she grew up in Woodstock, Ontario, and she was born into a devout Baptist household.
Everyone was concerned about whether they were going to hell or not, and there were certain behaviors that you could not do or certain ways of living. That was, what's that term? Verboten, I'm thinking of.
Yes. When you're born into that, you have to accept it. You don't really make choices of your own.
Exactly. And it sounds like the town, or maybe just her community of religious people, it was really almost like the town in Footloose, where apparently they couldn't watch movies, no dancing, no drinking. And yeah, so it's kind of like the Canadian Footloose.
I've never seen that movie.
I don't know that I have either. That's really sad.
Oh, my God. Yeah, I've seen Footloose a bunch.
Is it one of those movies that's great, Will?
You can live a full life without having seen Footloose, but you have the reference available to you, so you're good to go.
Exactly. That's all you need.
No dancing.
It's also a very large, I don't know if you call them canon, of movies that have the theme song scored by Kenny Loggins.
Oh,
yep.
So whereas Footloose ended with the joy of dancing, this story unfortunately ends with murder, most foul.
Yes.
And apart from growing up like this in this very constricting environment, she also was bullied, apparently. Her maiden name was Parker, and the kids would call her Porker. She was sort of a large woman or kid.
When I read that detail, that really broke my heart because children are very cruel. To her wake up every day knowing that she's going to be called Porker in the schoolyard.
Yeah.
It's just awful.
It is, and I do think there is a correlation between people that are bullied and, people that are violent often.
And I think the other thing, too, she had another strike against her is that she was gay. Her parents were also active in gay conversions in their church.
Right. She got put into one of those gay conversions, which we know.
They always turn out well. They always
99% of the time.
Because people can be turned.
And there's sarcasm in our voices because it's basically torture. And it's
horrible.
Just like, well, my uncle, this is not a story about him going to gay conversion, but he was left-handed. And they always decided that was like an aberration with kids. So they decided to like make him become a right-handed person.
That was very common.
Sinister comes from left.
Ooh, really?
Yeah, so it means
it's like the number 13 or something.
Like the etymology of sinister derives from being left-handed, more or less.
Oh, wow. Are any of us left-handed?
God, no.
No, me neither.
Not that I know
Thank goodness. My son is, though.
Oh, dear.
Anyway, that's neither here nor there. But my uncle, they made him right-handed. And even that is kind of harmful for your brain. It's just
very much
not good for you. So you can imagine what it's like if you're gay and all these religious people are telling you.
She's in this very sort of lonely environment, in a very strict household in a very lonely town in the middle of Canada. So she ended up going to college, and she went to a school called Conestoga College where she got a nursing degree in 1995.
Mm-hmm.
She became a nurse. To give a picture of her, when we see her, the current pictures of her, she looks like someone who could be manning a bake sale table.
Yeah.
She might steal a couple Rice Krispie treats, but she's going to pay for them at the end.
Yeah.
She looks like a very kind, lovely person.
And she did, maybe to make her parents proud or whatever, she did end up marrying a guy, a truck driver, Daniel Wettlaufer, and so she got to get rid of that Parker
name and took
she kept Wettlaufer. Would you take Wettlaufer over Parker?
Not as a kid.
No, well, she was married by the time she did, but
early on, there's a lot of nicknames that could come out of Wettlaufer.
That's true.
So Wettlaufer was a truck driver, which is also another interesting profession where you think of nursing professions provide it's a crime of opportunity, right?
Right.
And truck drivers are kind of the same way in that they're going up and down the same highways and they live sort of transient lives.
Did you know that truckers sometimes have trouble conceiving children because their legs are together? Male truckers, their legs are together, and your semen is supposed to be a little lower than your body temperature, but because you're sitting with your legs together, you're cooking them and they're no good.
Wow.
So anyway, she worked at some nursing places. One was called Carescent Care.
Yes, in Woodstock.
She had some issues with her colleagues, but nothing like crazy where she was accused of anything. It was mostly she drank a lot.
Well, she struggled with substance abuse, depression, and she had a hard time coming to terms with the fact that she was a lesbian. So she started working there, had some issues when fellow workers found her drunk.
Right.
She was suspended 4 times. You can return after being suspended for being drunk on the job.
Well,
they still kept her on.
Well, as a nurse, you're right.
Administering medicine.
Yeah, that's
problematic.
problematic.
And there's always terrifying, air bubbles alone would scare me being a nurse. And she was fired for that job. Eventually, she gave someone the wrong medication, but she's not actually killing anyone just yet that we know of.
She started working at this place, Carescent Care, and it's such a dumb name for a care facility because they're trying to obviously do like a play on words of like caress and care.
Yeah, that's a train wreck of a word.
And who wants your nurses to caress you?
Caress is a peculiar word.
So she started working there 2007. Maybe we should go to the end in a weird way. After she ended up leaving some of these nursing jobs, she was having all these problems with mental health and drugs. She went to the Center for Addiction and Mental Health. It's, I guess, a Canadian agency. They call it like CAMH or something.
Yeah.
And she starts telling them that she's killed all these patients while she was a nurse. The reason why we kind of jumped to the end is that nobody even really knew that this was going on because people die all the time at these nursing homes. So she starts listing these patients and how in like 2007, there were these sisters, Clotilde Adriano and Albina Demaderos.
Jesus Christ. These are like sobriety test names.
It's true. And Wettlaufer, what the hell?
What she used was she used insulin. Normally, what she would do at the end of the shift, she would shoot him up with insulin, so she would leave. So she wouldn't be the nurse on duty.
She gave them like an overdose.
Exactly. And so they would die through the night. And
usually the next day.
Or the next day. Usually they were older patients in their 90s. No one's going to question that.
Yeah.
Right? And some of these patients have been cremated.
And also apparently the body makes insulin on its own. So finding insulin in your body isn't going to be any like red flag.
Exactly. So, I mean, I think what we could say is, yes, she ended up killing 8 people.
Right.
And then there was other people that she almost killed.
Yeah. And one of the interesting things about this one, too, is that you figure that a killer who's a nurse, these are going to kind of be mercy crimes.
Some were mercy.
Right.
And some were like, this guy's grabby.
Most of them were like that. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, man.
James Silcox, 84.
Another tough name.
Was a World War II vet, and she claimed he grabbed women's breasts and butts. She didn't like him, and she was like, time for James to go.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Although I think he probably had dementia. So he probably thought he was grabbing his wife.
He was a World War II vet. Come
exactly.
on.
He deserves it. He's allowed to
He's
at 84.
A little grab ass at 84. Something to look forward to.
Look what he did for our country or for Canada.
One thing that's interesting about the insulin thing, and I'm not sure if this was findable in the research, was she diabetic?
That's a good question. I wouldn't
as far as putting
it
on her radar as a thing, because it sounds like a really smart thing to use.
Also, she was an alcoholic, but she was also addicted to other things, I think.
There's other sort of nurse serial killers as well. Like there's Howard Shipman out of England in the late 90s. He was addicted to heroin. He ended up killing 15 patients, but they think he had over 250 victims.
Oh, wow.
As a young boy, he watched his mother die of lung cancer when he was 7. And he saw that they would administer morphine to alleviate her pain. So that was planted in his head.
But he must have felt like I'm helping these people, maybe?
Yes, but then it also became an ego thing where I'm playing God.
He's just controlling them. Well, this is almost a subgenre, and we have a guest actually on this episode. You want to?
Yeah, later on we're going to talk to Charles Graeber, who wrote a book, The Good Nurse, which is the story of Charles Cullen, who was apparently the most prolific serial killer in the United States.
And there was a movie, Eddie Redmayne.
Eddie Redmayne and Jessica Chastain. And that's the other thing that's interesting is that with Cullen himself, he was killing between Pennsylvania and New Jersey hospitals. And when you have incidents like this, when a nurse kills, this is from my research, is they don't really write you up. They just send you on to the next hospital because they don't want to deal with the paperwork and the potential lawsuits.
Like kind of scandals with the Catholic Church a little bit. Some of those.
Just move them to a different parish. Didn't happen
Move
here.
It around.
So her first victim, James Silcox, was 84. He was a grab-ass guy. Then she murdered another guy, Maurice Granite. He was
also
84.
a grabber.
Also a grabber. And she said, time for you to go. And then she paused in her killing after the first 2.
Oh, she had some relationship,
She had a girlfriend named Sheila Edwards, who lived in Saskatchewan. So she had a respite from killing because she found some love. But that said she got this red surge in her head before killing. It was this rush, this addiction, which is curious because she was also a big scratch-off person. And they've likened serial killing.
It's the same vibe?
They have done studies where addictions, like addiction to gambling, is similar to addiction to serial killing.
Oh, interesting.
Because once you do it once, do it again.
Especially if they're old and they're easy to kill.
And they're right there in front of you.
Exactly.
And you've got insulin.
Totally.
And if they're grab asses, why not?
I know.
So that's like a dopamine
I think
phenomenon?
It's a dopamine rush, exactly.
I wonder if Charlie will know about that too.
Oh, Charlie would know all about that, I'm sure.
And she said there was a laughter in her belly or something?
It just brought her joy.
Yeah.
So she had a little bit of a respite. And then back in 2011, we also have to realize this is not that long ago. She killed Gladys Millard, who was 87. These people are all up there, so to speak. Helen Matheson, Mary Zarowinski, who was 96, who told Beth, I'm going to die tonight. And so Beth, she's like, I'm going to make it happen.
Yeah. She's
so
like,
she's
yes,
just
you
like,
are.
She's on deck. She's the next one. She killed Mary. And then there was Helen Young, who was 90, but she gave her pie and ice cream first, and then the insulin shot. This was sort of uncharacteristic. She seemed kinder to the female patients. Then there was Maureen Pickering, who she did not like.
Right.
And Maureen was miserable, and she wanted to die. She kept saying, help me, help me. And then she said, get out of here. And she also would probably has dementia. She would pull her hair, and Beth didn't like her. So Beth's like, you're next, lady. Then the next one she went after was Michael Priddle. He was 63. And then Wayne Hedges, 57. He was schizophrenic. And I think that annoyed her.
I guess.
After she left Carescent Care, that agency, whatever.
It's hard to even look at that.
Carescent.
Croissant?
Join us in Carescent, where you can Carescent, dignified death by insulin. So her eighth murder was Arpad Horvath. And she really hated him.
Yeah.
And he grabbed nurses and he twisted
pull
arms.
Hair, I think.
And she couldn't get the needle into him because he fought her. But then also you have to look, you think about the patients there suffering from dementia, not with their family.
Yeah.
They're terrified.
Yeah.
And it's not a nice place in life to be.
No.
My grandmother, my mom's mother, had Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
And she was put in a home that was run by Pennsylvania Dutch.
Oh, boy.
Because
So did they have electricity? Yeah.
They did have electricity.
Oh,
no, but apparently Alzheimer's is very common in that community.
Yeah.
And the one thing that's odd is also they say that a lot of them have been kicked in the head by horses.
Oh, boy.
Which my grandmother had been.
Oh, my God.
So there was like these weird sort of control experiments.
Why does that happen? Are the horses...
Horses are dicks when you get behind them.
I don't trust them.
I don't either. I've been bitten by a horse. But anyways, so you're dealing with a lot of just sadness.
Totally.
But she did believe that God sent her on a mission to kill.
So some of it was God talking to her.
It was a combination of God. Meanwhile, she's still using drugs and drinking.
She ended up telling some people, like the pastor and friends, and like nobody really called the police on her, which is maybe that is like kind of a Canadian thing. They were
like when we covered Lizzie Borden.
Yeah.
A lot of people just assume she doesn't look like someone who could kill.
Right.
So the other thing that was interesting on the side, she published a lot of poetry online. Dark topics about death, power, having control. So she was also expressing her frustration through her art, which is poetry.
Maybe a frustrated artist.
Exactly. I was trying to look for it online, but then I thought, like, I don't want to go there because it's probably for sale.
Yeah.
That's for Johnny Depp to buy, not me.
Speaking of subgenres, the whole serial killer art stuff.
Yeah, that's awful.
John Wayne Gacy.
Exactly.
Drew clowns or something?
Yes. Well, he performed as a clown. And he also, did you know that our friend Kent almost got into a car with him?
Oh, you're kidding.
Yes.
Where?
I think it was in Chicago.
Oh, my God.
He was a teenager and he was hitchhiking,
oh my God.
Which is how a lot of serial killers worked in the 70s.
Yeah,
yeah. It's like the drive-through window.
Yeah.
So the guy stopped. They opened the back door and they just said it was full of cans of beer and all that. And they kind of looked and said, not a good idea.
Oh, wow. Smart move.
Smart move. So anyway, so she told friends about this. She went to the Canadian Health Service.
And they didn't even like really act on it right away. They let her out.
Well, they consider that she's working at the same place and has been suspended 4 times for being drunk on the job. They still took her back.
I know.
So she's going and saying, I killed 8 people. And people are like, well,
yeah. These people, like you said, they were long dead.
Yes. So she ended up going to her pastor, and then her pastor said, turn yourself into the police. So now people start paying attention to it.
Yeah.
So overall, she confessed to 8 murders and 6 attempted murders. So that's 14 victims. And this is when she's telling, as we said earlier, she said she experienced a red surge prior to injecting her victims.
Right.
And she said, followed by an uncontrollable, as you wrote, Gideon, quote unquote, cackling from the pit of hell in her belly. And she said she did know the difference between right and wrong, but felt compelled to kill. And you brought up an interesting point in your notes here. Do you think this is the anger she had from her parents?
Well, I think one of the documentaries I watched mentioned that. Maybe she was so angry at her parents, but she didn't want to kill them. So she just killed these other older people who kind of
told her what to do.
Yeah, and were dicks.
I think one of the things we're going to keep coming back to in this podcast is what is the meaning of bad?
Yeah.
And also, who are we to judge?
Well, we have a podcast. That's why we can judge,
well,
right?
That's why. That's why.
what the mics are for.
Yes.
It's really interesting that she had, because she's dealing with the elderly, right? So Mercy, she had the out of mercy killing and then just didn't want to claim that out.
Yeah.
She could have easily said, I felt so bad for them. And they'd said, oh, you're compassionate. That's why you did it. She's like, no, this gave me a surge. It gave me a rush.
Also, I wonder if them being grabby and stuff was kind of like when we work in an office and like the printer is broken. And it's like, oh, this is so annoying. Let's just get a new printer. You know, she was kind of like that about the patients.
Oh, let's get a different person in this bed.
This is making my job annoying. But the big thing is that there really wasn't any murder weapon. They didn't really know the motive 100%. The people were dead, so there weren't really even witnesses. She admitted all this to the police and to that health and drug place.
She Googled how to kill patients.
Yeah, they found her Google searches.
So that's what I say.
And she also Googled other nurse killers,
Exactly. Like, who are my colleagues here? Who's the club?
And they did, I think they did exhume, because most of the people were cremated, but there were 2 of
they did exhume.
They did exhume them, and they didn't really, because I guess there was something in the brain. If you found it, you could say, oh, it was a drug overdose, but it was not that conclusive.
And the other thing I wanted to add is always erase your Google search history.
I'd never do, and I should.
I think it's an important thing to do.
Definitely.
I think now that the part 2 of this is she came forward, it all tracked, she did kill these people. Then you have to deal with the families, the loved ones who thought they went quietly into the night. And now you have this new rage. My father was murdered.
You're reliving what happened, and it's like, oh.
Yeah, you've made peace with this or not, but now you have something worse to make peace with.
Right, and you're kind of imagining the horror of it when you probably originally were like, oh, he died in his sleep, he was fine. And you have guilt for having put your relative there.
Exactly.
Yeah, you might have been like, oh, I should have advocated more, I should have been around more.
Totally. I'm sure some of these people didn't visit.
Hey, I can't find an allergist, so I can't even imagine.
One interesting thing is there was no trial, right?
Well, there was gonna be one.
Apparently, they released her to her parents.
Well, that was originally when she did the confession. But then they were kind of moving towards a trial, and the cops, that's when they exhumed the bodies. And they were also afraid that maybe she was like mental illness would get her off the hook.
And the other thing, too, is this is a very small community.
Totally.
Too. So people knew each other.
Well, her friend, this guy, it was a documentary called Living with a Serial Killer.
Glenn.
He also grew up in that community gay and did the conversion thing. And he came to terms with being gay. And he ended up kind of not testifying, but being a potential witness against her.
Witness. Well, he didn't kill anybody.
No.
The judge called her the shadow of death.
She did end up pleading guilty,
She pled guilty. But I just thought shadow of death with her face on it on a T-shirt.
Wasn't there like a Coolio song that mentions the shadow of death? Well,
Gangster's Paradise.
Gangster's Paradise. Yeah, but it's from the Bible,
It's from the Bible,
Valley
Shadow of Death and Valley of Death are pretty different.
It's all death.
If you plucked those lyrics from that line, you could make that other sentence.
So she ended up at the Grand Valley Institution for Women in Kitchener. She had diabetes problems, so she went to...
She was diabetic.
So she ended up having how many...
Oh, so you were right, Will.
I was wondering if that put it on her radar, but she also researched other nurses, so
exactly.
Who knows?
So she's now living in this women's facility.
She's in a hospital now, essentially.
It would be weird to be her nurse. what are you doing with that? Or
right.
But I guess what we're here is she bad?
Do we think Bethe Wettlaufer deserves to be called bad?
I think she does.
Yeah, I do too. I think especially preying on the vulnerable, that's always a bad thing. Like children or elderly people, that's a special kind of fucked upness.
It's kind of the learning curve. It's like you were bullied as a child, so you're going to turn around and be a bully. You haven't learned anything. And some of these she called mercy killings, but she went for younger people later on. She wasn't just going for the 96-year-old.
Yeah. Do you think in her head she did know the difference? But it's so weird. There was a video of her confession, and she doesn't sound like she 100% understands how terrible it was what she did. She must have known, but maybe not 100%.
She did have mental issues, but she had addiction. And the killing to her was that warm surge, that red surge that she had, which would be the same way that someone's shooting heroin into their vein
When
feels.
I eat Taco Bell, I get a warm surge sometimes.
Look at Scott had Taco Bell for lunch yesterday.
Okay.
One interesting thing that occurred to me is if you are a nurse, especially in elderly care, you could discover the surge of somebody dying sort of accidentally,
right,
and then want to do it on purpose. If she had somebody die in her care and then was like, "Ooh,
that was fun."
Yeah,
you don't know if that's part of your makeup that would make you excited. So you go into nursing, and then one day it's "Ooh, this is actually playing God" or whatever. There was this movie, it was a weird, random, obscure movie with Michael Caine called A Shock to the System.
I love that movie.
Did you see that?
I love that movie.
And he kind of accidentally pushes some unhoused guy on the subway platform and kills him. And he gets a rush out of it. And then he starts killing other people.
Bippity boppity boo. Is that what he says after he kills people?
Oh my God.
So I love that movie. But getting back to Will's point, I would think to witness someone die and then giving you a surge, there's some sort of pathology there because that's not a natural instinct to be inspired by watching someone die.
No, there's something that happened to you,
wrong.
some abuse that caused you to have or just something wrong with your makeup or something.
I mean, it's the same way where people might have weird proclivities during sex.
Yeah.
And hopefully they find each other.
Going back to the whole, is she bad? I do think she's definitely bad for sure. But the one thing I did want to mention, they kind of tout her as one of the worst female Canadian serial killers.
Well, there's even a worse serial killer from Canada.
Is there?
And his name is Robert
But it's
Pickton.
a he.
There's not a lot of serial killers in Canada because I looked it up.
True.
But he was a serial killer he was sort of a truck driver, I believe, outside of Vancouver. And he preyed upon Indigenous women. And this is interesting.
Oh, that's terrible.
Indigenous women are only 4% of the population.
I see.
However, they are 60% of the murdered population.
Oh, my God.
So he went after those women and prostitutes, but he owned a pig farm. So he would bring the women's bodies back there. And so when they finally raided his pig farm, I think they got him for, 6 murders, but they said he murdered up to 49 Indigenous women.
Oh, wow.
And they found the women's remains on his farm, meaning he fed their bodies to the pig. So you got that.
Yeah.
What if he learned that you were eating sausage that had human remains in it?
Right. Far more egregious than what Wettlaufer did.
Exactly. And
she's a saint compared to that guy.
Exactly.
Some of them probably did deserve to go.
Well, the grab ass one.
Let's be frank.
I'll give the World War II vet a pass.
Okay.
Because you know how I feel about World War II vets.
Right.
There's a place in my heart.
Anybody that was on Omaha Beach.
Is she bad? Let's get back to it. I think yes. I blame it on she had addiction, which is a disease.
But that's not bad.
But that colors your reality.
Right.
And also she was mentally ill.
Yeah, but it goes beyond that,
Well,
right?
No,
that's not why she killed people.
No, you have a choice. You have a choice. The one thing I did when she dated Sheila Edwards.
Yes.
Sheila from Saskatchewan.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if she was happy when she was with her.
I think she was, but I don't think Sheila was too into it. I think she actually, in one of these documentaries, she kind of said when she broke up with her that Wettlaufer was a bit scary. She kind of was
unhinged.
Yeah, exactly.
You're gonna
so
love
it wasn't
me.
just an island of, she wasn't just a totally different person.
I don't think so, but I do think that was part of her anger. Like you've said a few times, Kathy, she just was alone and alienated and isolated.
But I'm wondering that maybe her life with Sheila, because she did have a respite from the victims for a while, between 2007 and 2011, she was with Sheila.
Yeah.
And so then when she broke up with her, that's when she turned.
Yeah, I think maybe we should talk to Charlie.
Okay. Charlie writes about fun stories.
Lots of fascinating stuff.
Yeah, he's been there. He's gone to the dark side.
Serial killing nurses are not just limited to Canada. We also have them here in the States. Joining us from Nantucket is Charles Graeber, author of The Good Nurse, a true story of medicine, madness, and murder, which investigated serial killer nurse Charles Cullen. The book was adapted into the Oscar-nominated film starring Eddie Redmayne, The Good Nurse.
Welcome, Charlie Graeber. Charlie, to give a little background, how do we know each other? Do you remember when we met?
Yeah, I think maybe you should tell the story.
Well, I believe it was one of those Sunday fun days in Williamsburg. And I think I was with Adam Fisher and my sister, and we were sitting at, I think, a bar on Metropolitan that had an open space that looked out on the sidewalk, and you walked by doing your laundry.
That sounds right.
And you're talking about Williamsburg, Brooklyn, not a colonial Williamsburg.
Not colonial.
Right. I was wearing a tri-corner hat.
Right.
I had a fife. They didn't like me on the drums. They said, you're a girl. You should be sewing flags.
Oh, boy.
So, Charlie, we were talking about Bethe Wettlaufer, but we wanted your insight in this with your experience researching Charles Cullen. And can you explain to us how, this notorious serial killer goes to jail. He's not talking to anyone. How did you get him to talk to you and share his story?
That was happening right at the time we met.
Yeah.
I mean, that was exactly what was happening. The first letters were coming into underneath my door right at that time. I'd written him a letter, not actually thinking he was going to respond, because he was trying to donate a kidney from jail.
Oh, wow.
It was that circumstance that got me interested, because I didn't really have a overwhelming need to talk to serial killers or even a great interest. But he was a killer nurse, and he wasn't speaking to anyone, but he was attempting to donate a kidney to someone who needed one and would presumably die without it. It had already been tested and was a match for that recipient. And the families of the victims didn't want to see the nurse that had played God with their family members continuing to be able to play God, even a benevolent God. They didn't want him to go, change testaments or something. So they were blocking his ability to donate a kidney. And so ironically, or that's probably the wrong use of ironically, but another innocent person was going to die as a result. And I thought that was a really screwed up situation that was perfect to insert myself into. And also, if I got involved, maybe a good thing would happen. Meaning attention would be brought to this situation, and the ridiculousness of my narrative would make the donation possible. And I wrote him based on that premise, which turned out to be the perfect way to speak to a sociopathic serial killer, which is to say, power's in your hands. I'm not your karmic accountant. I'm not going to weigh good versus bad. I'm just simply saying, if this is something that's important to you, this is a vehicle that might further that. And it reflected a version of himself that he wanted to see reflected. And so he got back in touch.
So tell us a little bit about Charles Cullen. I've sort of given the lowdown. He was a nurse in Pennsylvania and New Jersey, bouncing around hospitals, committing murders and stuff like that. He was an addict.
Well, he was. He was an alcoholic and struggled with that. He's from East Orange, New Jersey, originally. He was in the Navy. He had a hard time in high school. He had a hard time with his mother's death. And he really found himself in nursing. Then over the course of 16 years, he was at 9 different hospitals across New Jersey and Pennsylvania. At each hospital, he was either let go or fired with positive or neutral references, never negative references. And he was killing the entire time. So throughout his career, I interviewed him for years in secret, based on everything I learned from him and other sources that were opened up to me because of talking to him. The body count was somewhere around 400 victims during that time.
Oh, my goodness.
The question is always, why wasn't he discovered earlier? And the answer is he was. He was discovered over and over again and moved out the back door. and made someone else's problem. And that, to me, was the real story.
Yeah, because also, like, hospitals didn't want to deal with the paperwork.
And
quietly out the back
having
door.
that publicity, too.
No one wants that publicity. We'll just pay these people off and move forward.
Yeah, it was a liability issue. People at the hospital that dealt with Cullen did a great job of limiting their liability and getting rid of him. But over and over again, they failed to do anything more than that. And he would simply move down the road, literally, and get another job and continue killing people. And after a while, I mean, he's the one that told me this. I mean, I verified it. I did a lot more research than just talking to him. But after a while, his murder habit or murder compulsion, he justified as a way of pointing out that the hospitals were not there for patient safety, that they were more concerned with their own well-being. So he actually justified what he did as almost being a symptom of a sick institution, which is, I don't know, kind of meta.
Yeah.
And he's not wrong.
No, he's not wrong. And how did he end up getting discovered, or who turned him in?
Well, I wrote a book about it. In that book, you find that he was actually discovered over and over again, that there were some nurses that came forward and risked their careers to say, no, you can't just let this person go. There's more happening here. The death rate spiked. We're missing, huge amounts of certain medications, not narcotic medications, but, paralytic medications or heart medications. Everyone knows. And those whistleblowers, brave whistleblowers, nothing ever good happens to whistleblowers, And so they kind of came and went. In the end, the last hospital he was at in Somerset County, New Jersey, he was caught, and then the hospital got caught out trying to investigate on their own. They called New Jersey Poison Control. They wanted help with the math to figure out, okay, we have a patient that was overdosed on, heart drug, or a patient that was overdosed on insulin. And they're trying to figure out, when would this patient have been given these drugs? And working from that, who was on shift. They're just trying to do it internally rather than call it a homicide and bring in the cops. And to their credit, New Jersey Poison Control, Dr. Stephen Marcus and Dr. Bruce Ruck said, well, wait a minute. This isn't just a math problem. The problem is that someone's killing patients, right? That's the problem. And they refused to let it go, said that if you're not going to do something about it, we will. And this has all been on recorded line the entire time. After that point, the hospital felt compelled to indicate that they thought that perhaps they had an issue, not a homicide issue, just an accident issue. And the detectives, homicide detectives that tried to figure out what was going on, they were having no luck because, a hospital full of doctors and a law firm had apparently been investigating, and they said they had no paperwork and no idea what was happening. So, two guys that are used to street murders, they're not going to be able to solve a medical situation. They were very fortunate that Charlie Cullen, the serial killer, his best friend at the hospital, a woman named Amy Longren, agreed to discover for herself whether or not her best friend, someone she'd been protecting, assuming he was being scapegoated, or whether he was a serial killer. And so she put herself at risk and her job at risk and approached him, wearing a wire for the cops.
Wow. We also want to add that The Good Nurse, your book, also became a movie in 2022 with Eddie Redmayne and Jessica Chastain.
It did.
I read the book and I saw the movie, Charlie.
Thank you. What did you think of the translation between the two? I didn't make the movie.
It's funny because I'm reading Devil in the White City right now, and I don't know how the hell they're going to make that a movie. I do have to say I really enjoyed, not just because I know you, but I really enjoyed the book a lot. It really broke things down and got into his head.
Thanks.
So I'd have to say I prefer the book. But the movie was great. And Eddie Redmayne they're both great.
I only saw the movie, but I thought it was great. And I'm sorry I didn't read your book.
Gideon doesn't read books.
So we had been talking about Elizabeth Wettlaufer, and I know after the trial and she basically pled guilty, there was a whole look into the system and what went wrong. There was some good that came out of this horrible thing, that they changed the system a bit. I think they changed the way they screen people, etc. After your book and after the whole ordeal with Charles Cullen, did something like that happen here?
I'd love to say yes. My real goal from the book, aside from writing a book that I would want to read, I really wanted to expose the fuller story because it seemed like a really simple story, right? Bad guys out there, he's eluding the system. Eventually the system catches up with him and order is restored. And in fact, that's not the story at all. Again, he was caught over and over again. The system perpetuated that, and eventually the system got caught, and therefore he got caught.
Yeah.
He's sentenced to hundreds of years. He's never going to get out of maximum security in Trenton. But the people that facilitated him, the career bureaucrats in hospitals, the administrators, there's been a question, were they knowingly accessories to murder? Was that something that they should be held accountable for? And the detectives who stopped Cullen wanted a grand jury, and they were denied on a political level. So
wow.
What I really hoped to do was to at least get to the point where we were allowed to ask the question, were these people accessories to murder? And that still hasn't happened. There are so-called Cullen laws that are supposed to help stop bad nurses from being in the system. And all they do is they penalize nurses
right.
who are often overworked, scheduled poorly. If a hospital doesn't have enough nurses on and nurses start making mistakes because of understaffing, the problem becomes the nurses. So it's become a further way of scapegoating.
In protecting themselves.
Yeah, no hospital has even said, whoops, we shouldn't have done that.
No.
Even that. They just can't do it for liability's sake.
It's just crazy. And there were some civil cases that were brought, and some successfully, especially with hospitals where it was revealed that the president of the hospital called his friends and said, don't hire this guy.
Oh, boy.
But they never reported it officially.
Oh, that's interesting. So we told you a little bit about Beth with an E, Wettlaufer. She had sort of similar characteristics. I mean, she had problems with alcohol. She did go from a couple of different hospitals. She actually was suspended 4 times in one place for being drunk on the job, but they still brought her back, which I don't think any other job would let you do that. She actually confessed to people. Number 1, they didn't want to deal with it. Number 2, she just didn't look the part. She looked like she could be a church lady.
Yeah. One of the factors that I think you have to keep in mind with all these cases is that we need more nurses.
Right.
There's a shortage, and anybody with a pulse and the right letters after their name is acceptable. And that's horrible, especially, I know in her case, she was taking care of our most vulnerable.
People in the 90s, yeah.
There was a more recent case in Pennsylvania. She'd seen the movie too. I guess she liked it as well.
You're an inspiration.
Yeah, I know. I felt really bad about that one. She'd basically been in a euthanasia clinic, a kill shelter. And then she moved to a nursing home and couldn't get fired for trying.
Wow.
Kind of was doing the same thing in both places, and was a supervisor at the end and had almost no experience. I mean, we could blame ourselves as well. Apparently, we don't prioritize taking care of our elderly enough to make it pay and be able to be selective in who we hire.
So I guess what I want to ask you, too, is, when we're talking about Wettlaufer, she said that she would get a surge. She called it the red surge. And they even likened it to be like the same sort of feeling you get with gambling when you're winning or something like that. Like it's sort of an addictive thing. Do you think there's a common thread? Like, did Cullen have sort of, being an alcoholic himself, he had sort of the same similar feelings with the addiction of killing? Or was it a God syndrome? Like, what do you think drove him to do that?
He described it as a compulsion. I felt compelled to intervene.
Yeah.
That's probably as honest as he'll ever get in terms of his motives. It made him feel better. It gave him a sense of control. Kathy, it's a really good comparison to gambling, which is, he read the results of what he had done. So he'd give various patients different mixtures of push and pull for their blood pressure, for their heart rate, for their insulin levels, all these different things, these different cocktails. And he was very good with the chemistry. So he knew what he was doing, but he didn't know exactly which would win. And then he would read the next day back through the medical records on a little computer screen, the way you'd read the results on a sports page in the newspaper.
Wow.
So it was very similar, I think, to gambling. He compared himself to James Bond at one point, at least to his friend Amy, which is to say that he felt like he was leading a sexier, secret double life. Instead of being an employee or, a pawn, he was in control. He was the secret puppet master. That was his motivation.
You interacted with Cullen. How did you feel about him? Like, we're calling this bad Elizabeth. These people are bad people. Obviously, Cullen is a complicated creature, but do you think he is a sociopath? Do you think he's bad?
I think he's a sociopath. I think he's amoral.
Okay.
The question is, did he know right from wrong?
Right.
Yes. Did he know what he was doing was affecting or ending people's lives and impacting family members and so forth? Absolutely.
Yeah.
When he put an 86-year-old man who was in a halo with a broken neck, one of those awful things where they screw it in.
Yeah.
And when he put him into a seizure with insulin and was able to stand by him as he shook himself to death, right? And then go on with his day. That's a different sort of person. I also wanted to, if I can, talk about nurse serial killers.
Of course.
I mean, it is a subgenre. There are a bunch of them. But the thing is that if you like killing people, hospital is a great place to do it. People dropping dead in the AutoZone just seems wrong, right? But people die in hospitals. That's what happens. You're also given the tools to save or not save, kill people on a daily basis. And you're drawing a population that is interested in life and death, being involved.
Mm-hmm.
So you're kind of self-selecting a person. Not that those people are more likely to kill you.
Of course.
But yeah, compared to other professions like serial killing bankers,
It's rare.
And also, as you said before, with Cullen in particular, it gave him some agency. Yeah, he might be whipping people's asses during the day, but at the end of the day, he also has control if they're going to live or die.
As nursing pay rates went up, more men joined because it was once really seen as an exclusively female profession, right? And then you got a lot of what Charlie Cullen would consider bros, the nurse bro.
Right.
And those guys playing hacky sack with a tape ball while Mrs. Jabanowitz is dying in the other room and mocking him as well because he was sort of a drippy, nerdy, he was the guy that got whipped with a towel in high school, got whipped with a towel in the submarine when he worked in the Navy. He had a target on his back. And this was a way of righting the power balance in his mind somehow.
Yeah.
Most people don't ever have to face the question, should I kill this person? Do I care?
Yeah.
I tried to ask that question of myself in writing the book. It took 10 years and I tried to make myself crazy so I could write through him. And happily, I came up with the answer that no. I mean, I could almost get there, but at the end of the day, no, I find it horrifying. But really, very few of us deal with suffering people, life and death. So we really don't even have to address whether or not we're monstrous.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And I found that to be the most horrifying thing because there's a temptation to treat the serial killer as the other. I think that's part of the fetishization of serial killers.
Mm-hmm.
And those people aren't us. And so we feel better about that. But what I found was, given the right circumstances, pretty much any of us become monstrous.
Yeah. I'm sure the desensitization of it causes you to act differently from people that don't see those things every day.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I think you have to be that way to have that type of job,
Mm-hmm, of course.
The other thing that I was curious about also the victims, the relatives of the victims too, the way they feel after that sort of fallout, that you were trying to help get justice for that and then people writing to you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, imagine that's for you as the writer. They're looking for you as to be the sort of conduit for justice.
The first reaction, almost universally for any family member involved with this, was to turn their anger to me, to a person they thought I was disgusting. They imagined I was, massively profiting off of and preying on their suffering. And they were awful to me. I found universally that none of those people had read the book. I haven't found anyone that did read the book, all the family members that had any problem. In fact, I heard from a lot of them that appreciated what I was doing and then wanted to ask if I had any more information because I had a lot of leaked files. That was difficult. Just like there's no perfect serial killer, there's no perfect victim.
Yeah.
You want to love all the victims and all the victims' families, and you don't. But none of that has anything to do with whether or not they should die.
Yeah.
But it can get confusing because you want your victims to be sympathetic.
Of course.
You want your villain to be villainous.
Exactly. Well, the other thing, are you still in touch with him or are you guys?
No, we're done with each other. I was useful to him, he thought, or potentially. He didn't like what I made.
Oh, really?
When you start dealing with people like that, you start asking yourself even who you are and what lies you're telling yourself. You will obviously also start asking yourself whether you have any real feelings or whether you just need to pretend you have feelings. It can drive you nuts.
No, you spent 10 years with this. And the other thing, too, is that you're an immersive journalist and you've done all kinds of stories like this.
And the people you're interviewing will often try to manipulate you to change your mindset. So you're fighting that the whole time.
Oh, very much.
It's not easy.
So what are you working on next?
I'm working on a few things. Some are nonfiction. Some are sort of crossing over into fiction, which is just taking nonfiction and not worrying about the timeline as much. I've always been a cartoonist, and I'm working with an illustrator because my cartoons are saggy. They're not neat. So now I'm working with an illustrator, and I just make the concepts, and he draws them out, and we're sending them to the New Yorker and so forth. So that's been my candy lately. But I'm still dealing with horrible things. Don't worry.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you all. See you guys.
Thanks so much to our guest, Charles Graeber, for joining us from Nantucket. And check out his books, The Good Nurse and The Breakthrough. If you want more information on Bethe Wettlaufer, I got her name right, you can find that in the show notes. Thank you for listening to Bad Elizabeth. Please rate and review the show on places like Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We are Bad Elizabeth Pod on Instagram and Substack.
Feel free to email us at badelizabethpod@gmail.com if you have any questions or comments.
Bad Elizabeth is recorded at Jet Road Studios. It is hosted by me, Gideon Evans.
And me, Kathy Egan-Taylor. It is produced and engineered by Will Beckton, and our executive producer is Amber Beckton.
Our theme music was composed by Alexis Guardado and Danny Gray. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you next time.